but your daddy will never live with us again. I mean, how would you do that to a child?
Well, children, different age,
What would you say?
Children weren't the bosses.
Absolutely. And so, me, who every night my father would tell me a story. I'd gone from these stories every night, which I loved, to nobody there.
Mm.
But because he didn't want to leave me, really, but I wouldn't go over there, which I never did, really, as I say. But because of that, they lived in the house that my father and mother had lived in too. So that must have been hard for Grandma Phyllis. And she always said, we never could move because of his precious little Sheila. That was the word she used. And yes, he would pass in the morning and he'd go on a 7:30 train and he'd deliberately do this with his shoes, so I knew
Outside,
it was him
walking
going past.
here. He was walking off to
Because he'd
Furness
walked to the
Vale.
station, yes, at Furness Vale. So that was it, really. But with your father, it was the only time, I think that was one of the first times I fainted, Margaret, that he'd come and the cat had had kittens in the stick place. And he'd gone in. And of course it was pitch black. He'd gone in to see these kittens. And I opened the door and he went, ooh, like this. And I was frightened to death. But he was always difficult, your father. I can say that now. But that I was the only one who could put him to rights.
Mm.
And I still am. And although you may not think he respects me, he does. Whether he loves me, that's another thing. But whereas he'd be like, they had a fridge that was silent because it bothered him when he was studying.
Oh, they had to get a new fridge.
Yeah, they had to get a new fridge because that's what he was doing. And would he use his fireworks at November the 5th? No, he'd use anybody else's. He wouldn't use his. He'd keep his until his birthday of November the 20th, when he would have a party himself. So that's what he did. So nobody's ever been able to deal with him, only me. And I don't know. I mean, he certainly couldn't deal with his mother. And I think my father just let him do what he wanted. And he used to say to Uncle Law, because he'd come across my father, and he used to talk about your father, and he'd just say to him, but he's such a clever little lad. And Uncle Law used to say, he's a clever little lad, but he's no manners. Uncle Law would say, you see. But my father wouldn't say anything. They wouldn't say anything against each other.
Mm.
What he said was right, so. But, yes, he was. But he was always poorly when he was little. And I thought, well, maybe it's that. But, well, as your mother knows, he's an easy person to live with for any man. Very difficult. But he's a law unto himself, and that's him. But, I mean, the fact is that I don't know what he's like, really, in the bottom. I don't think anybody does.
What about driving? So the story I heard was that Granddad was the first person in the village to have a car.
Yes, but the thing was that, but because he had, when he was early, Margaret, shall I have a little more of that? She'll be drinking.
It's cool.
Well, no matter.
I'll make another pot.
No,
It's all right.
because he was working, as he left, he got this job as a commercial traveller. So he was going up and down the country, and he had a little Austin.
Oh, so he had to have it for his work.
He had a little Austin car. So he was the only person in Bridgebond who had a car. And then somebody who lived next door, who was called Percy Waterhouse, he had a car, but I don't know what he was. Because only doctors and people
who really needed them
would have a car. So he had this, of which I fell out of when I was about 3. the door opened and I fell out.
Oh.
But then he got a Ford 8, and number was ERB 286, and this was at the beginning of the war, and of course you couldn't have lights on
Yeah.
when you were driving, so they had to paint the hubs of the wheels white
Oh.
if you were going out in dusk or anything.
Oh, to so you could see each other.
So you could see them. So he had that. But Ian, you know, Sue's husband, would say Grandad was the only one, they called him Great, of course, which they did call him Great. Great was the only one who could be out in the car and you'd hear him in Bridgemont because he revved it all the way.
Oh.
Vroom. No. So you get it out of the garage, you know, vroom, it'd go. So
He always had the garage around the back here, did he?
he did. So he had that. So every Sunday we would go round Derbyshire. This was before Grandma Phyllis came on the scene. We'd go round Derbyshire.